Do you remember the line in Jurassic Park? It's become the famous line. You were so busy wondering if you could do it, no one ever asked if you should do it. But the line is rings true. You were so busy wondering if you could, you never asked if you should. I'm a capitalist. Capitalism is a superior system to communism. Capitalism has elevated people out of poverty far more than communism. But there has always been, until very recently, one thing undergirding capitalism. There's been a morality undergirding capitalism. For a very long time, capitalists did ask if they should do something, not just if they could do something. And it ebbs and it flows. You know, in the early 1900s and the late 1800s, and the robber barons, a lot of them were deeply religious men, and they believed that they were providing wealth and helping their country and growing their country and lifting people out of poverty and providing people jobs. And they accumulated a ton of wealth, but then they used it very charitably for a lot of things. They got a very bad rap, and some of them did become monopolists and very anti-competitive. And when a monopolist becomes anti-competitive, it breaks down the system. And in breaking down the system, the free market can't actually work. Well, now we have new problems and new moral hazards. As traditional morality fades and corporations go woke, they virtue signal themselves doing the right things for the woke and then prey on everyone else, particularly the middle class. A capitalism that is not grounded in any sort of moralism, or I should say morality, because there's a lot of moralizing in corporations. Look at Burger King wanting to come out now with a chicken sandwich that's for sale on Sunday and gives money to gay rights activists to persecute Christians. Yes, the gay rights group that Burger King wants to fund by sales of the chicken sandwich is a group that is well known for harassing Christians around the country. And Burger King taking shots at Chick-fil-A. So there's a lot of moralism in corporate America these days. The Major League Baseball moving its games out of Atlanta because of the election law. Corporations taking stands on religious freedom laws against them typically. There's a lot of moralizing. There's a lot of woke morality, but there isn't real grounded, true morality. Instead of the great says who being God guiding us, it is the mob, and the mob is fickle. And right now, the cultural mob leans to the left. Let me tangent this out. I have a growing number of friends on the right who are embracing something they're calling common good conservatism. That essentially we should be using government like the left does, and it's very alluring. The argument is essentially the left is already doing these things. Why can't we do them and fight back? So the left, for example, is already forcing businesses through the mob to take actions against conservatives. Why can't conservatives use the mob or the government to force conservatives to do other things? So, for example, the left is already forcing the baker to bake the cake bigot. So why can't we force the business to not request proof of vaccines? There are a lot of conservatives out there who say, they say, how is this any different from bake the cake bigot? We don't want the left doing that to the Christian baker, so why were you doing this? And the response from the common good conservatives is they're already doing it. The baker already has to bake the cake. Jack Phillips, the baker in Colorado, he's being sued for like the 5th time. So why can't we use government? I've got friends of mine in the media and in conservatism who say we should be harnessing government and leveraging it to enact conservative policy. We should be big government conservatives. We should force the corporations of America to enact our agenda just like the left does. We should use government to impose our morality just like the left does. We should do the same thing as the left. Forget about limited government. Forget about small government. Forget about restraint of government. Let's do to them what they do to us. We'll use government against them as they use government against us. Sounds alluring, doesn't it? The temptation of the ring of power, there's always the temptation. And conservatives are giving into the temptation. It's common good conservatism. We know what the common good for society is. It's a 2-parent nuclear family. It is pro-life. It is against transgenderism. It is against social deviancy. We're going to use the government to impose our morality. But there are two major flaws with it. One of which is there are more of them than there are of us. I don't know if you know this, but the Republicans have only won the popular vote in elections in not very many times. 2004, Bush versus Kerry was the last time Republicans won the popular vote, even as they've been able to win with the Electoral College in 2016. In 2000, George W. Bush lost the popular vote. There's only been one election since 1988 where Republicans won the popular vote. There are more of them than there are of us. If you use government to impose morality, at some point, there are more of them than there are of us. How do you change them to us? I don't think you do that by throwing fists in their face and making demands on them like they do to us. You've got to change hearts. You've got to change minds if you want to change culture. There are certainly things you can do as long as you have power, but how long will you keep it? The other problem is who's going to determine the common good? I assure you it's not going to be you and me. It's not going to be the high school grad who didn't go to college or the guy who didn't go to the Ivy League. It's going to be Adolphus Josephus the 25th, who went to Harvard but drank Budweiser at a Federalist Society meeting, said F the left, and put on a Make America Great Again hat. And he gave a big donation to Donald Trump from his private jet on the way to the Maldives. That dude on his third wife is going to be the one who decides what the common good is. The morality of Harvard, Yard, and Yale and Princeton will continue to govern because that's where the conservative elite come from as well. And that conservatism really doesn't look a lot like real conservatism, nor does it actually look like real common good. It just has a veneer that looks like the common man. But we need some level of morality. And that comes, I think, really from churches. It comes really from us seeking the welfare of the cities in which we live, as the Bible says, as opposed to imposing on everyone through Washington, D.C. But we need some level of that morality because of something that is happening, and it is a new phenomenon. The Wall Street Journal began covering this in 2017, and it's a problem, and this is one of those places where the right probably will find some common ground with the left. This is from July 21st, 2017 in the Wall Street Journal. When real estate agent Don Nugent listed a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house here on Joanne Drive in Spring Hill, Tennessee, offers came immediately, including a $208,000 one from a couple with a young child looking for their first home. A competing bid was too attractive to pass up. American Homes for Rent, a public company that has been scooping up homes in the neighborhood, offered the same amount, but all cash, no inspection required. 12 hours after the house went on the market in April of 2017, the Agora Hills, California-based real estate investment trust signed a contract. About a month later, it put the house back on the market, this time for rent, for $1,575 a month. A new breed of homeowner had arrived in the middle-class suburb of Nashville and in many other communities around the country. Big investment firms in the business of offering single-family homes for rent. Their appearance has shaken up sales and rental markets and in some neighborhoods sparked rent increases. That was from 2017. Here now from 2020, October of 2020. Also the Wall Street Journal headline, America's largest landlord adds $1 billion for its home hunt. Real estate investors have a mountain of money looking for a home. Lately, a lot of it is ending up in the suburban single-family houses. Invitation Homes Incorporated, the country's largest rental homeowner, on Wednesday disclosed a joint venture with Boston property investor Rockpoint Group LLC that will result in more than $1 billion for the landlord's ongoing house hunt. Invitation, which owns about 80,000 houses, has been buying at a clip of roughly $200 million a quarter since a pause at the onset of the coronavirus lockdown. It sold $448 million of new shares in June to fuel its expansion. It's the latest example of cash flowing from large money managers to single-family rental companies. Financiers created the companies a decade ago to buy foreclosed homes by the thousands following the financial crisis. The pandemic has sent Americans rushing to the suburbs in search of a lawn, room for home offices, and distance from neighbors. Landlords, including Invitation and American Homes for Rent, have reported a record occupancy and rising rents. And now there's one from April of 2021. Again, Wall Street Journal headline: if you sell a house these days, the buyer might be a pension fund. A bidding war broke out this winter at a new subdivision north of Houston, Texas, but the prize this time was the entire subdivision. Not just a single suburban house, illustrating the rise of big investors as a potential new force in the U.S. housing market. D.R. Horton Incorporated built 124 houses in Conroe, Texas, rented them out and then put the whole community, Amber Pines at Forester Ridge, on the block. A who's who of investors and home rental firms flocked to the December sale. The winning $32 million bid came from the online property investment platform Fundrise LLC, which manages more than $1 billion on behalf of 150,000 individuals. The country's most prolific home builder booked roughly twice what it typically makes selling houses to the middle class, an encouraging debut in the business of selling entire neighborhoods to investors. From individuals with smartphones and a few $1,000s to pensions and private equity firms with billions, yield-chasing investors are snapping up single-family homes to rent out or flip. They're competing with ordinary Americans. Here's the problem. Corporate America, particularly private equity America, has decided that Americans no longer want the American dream, that American middle-class homeowners no longer need homes to buy. So instead, they are buying up every available property on the market and then forcing you to rent, because land is too expensive for you to buy and land is too expensive for you to build on, and lumber prices have gone up so much, you're forced into a rental market even though you want to be a homeowner. These corporations have so busy wondered if they could do it, they haven't asked if they should do it, and they're driving up home prices. They're gentrifying neighborhoods against the neighborhood's will. They're driving up property prices, and they're forcing you to pay more and more. If you want to own land or buy a house, you got to move further and further away from even the suburbs out into rural America. And this is all going to come crashing down. At some point, people are going to decide, I don't want to keep renting, I want to buy. And they're going to be priced out of markets, and people are going to leave. They're going to move further out to rural areas. They're going to buy houses there where these corporations aren't, and the property prices are going to crash, and you're going to have whole empty suburban corridors with collapsing, crumbling homes, because corporate America never asked if they should do this. They never asked if they should wipe out the American dream, and Congress is probably going to have to act on this, and I think I'm actually in favor of Congress acting on this. Private equity companies are putting rental markets into not just equity, but in pension funds. You've got pension funds run by private entities for the government now demanding that you yourself rent your house instead of buying your house. It takes away the dream of home ownership and an available pool of equity from American consumers and forces them to be renters for life, driving up rental prices on them. This is not sustainable long term. I can see it coming. And then these major hedge funds and private equity groups are going to go to the government for a bailout. And they can do it right now, not really because of the free market. They can do it right now because they have access to subsidized guarantees and access to the FDIC that you, the individual home buyer, do not have. They can get away with it. It's not a free market. It's not really even capitalism. It's cronyism. And they're calling it capitalism. A capitalist society without morality is no better than a communist society. Sure, more people elevate out of poverty, but a whole lot of rich people take advantage of everyone else, just like in communism. You've got to have a real free market. This isn't one. And not only that, you got to have some grounding in morality and be able to question whether or not you should do something. And none of them are asking it. This has been going on now for a number of years, and it's escalating. Government is going to have to step in, and when they do, it's going to be a burden on all of us unless we stop it now instead of waiting until it festers out of control.